Jira. We've been abusing Strawberry, but I want to focus on Jira to just show the capabilities of this specific platform. So let me just open over here. Okay, you can see over here I planned my webinar with Strawberry, but I'll just take you along what we have for today. So I have Jira open over here. I have different projects that I had already had. So I'm going to create a new space. So the purpose of today is to just guide you on how to get started with Jira, how to create a project, right? So with Jira, there are different templates that you can use, right? So there's Kanban where you can visualize and plan your project or your work. And then there's IT service. This is related to managing requests and incidents. And then you have different types of other templates, but today we're going to use the Kanban one. So let's just let it load quickly, right? So you can, okay, here we've selected the template. So there's team managed, there's company managed. So for today, we're going to say team managed space. So team managed space would allow you to, for example, invite your supervisor if you want them to just keep track of your progress and everything. So here you're going to have the name of your space. So I'm going to name it PhD research. So I already have another one. So I'm going to name it research 2, right? So I'm going to keep it limited for now. So it's going to be the key PR2. So over here, we have our different stages on our board, the Jira board. So to do, in progress, in review, and done, right? So I'm going to keep it as is. And then different work types. So I'm going to just set up the work types. So here I want to specifically have tasks. These other features are not really related to research, but the task one is important. So I will not modify the other ones, but the focus will be on the task over here. And then we have the statuses over here. I can add a different one if it's relevant to my work. So to do, in progress, in review, done, and then I don't know, we can just say over here approved. So maybe approved by your supervisor, right? And then we can proceed to the next step. And then here you can invite your lecturer or your supervisor, for example. I'll do this later. And then here we are. This is our board, right? So we currently do not have any tasks. So to give context of what we'll do for this research, right? An example of my research project for this, I want to do an AI-enabled learning support and doctoral completion in South African university. So that's my topic. And then the research question related to it is, how does the use of AI-enabled learning support tools influence doctoral candidates' research, progress, agency, and completion experiences at South African universities? So just to quickly show you the steps as to how to get set up, right? So this is the board, our board where we will put all our tasks related to the research. But before we even record the tasks, we need to create things called epics, right? So I will go to list for this one here to make it easier. So basically what an epic um, it is something that would label our major research phases, right? So instead of creating an enormous list of items, we will use major research phases as epics. So each epic will hold smaller activities needed to complete the phase. An example of an epic would be the first phase, which would be proposal and research design. So let me create my first epic over here. So here, this lightning icon indicates that it is an epic, right? So my first epic is proposal and research design, right? That's my first phase. Then I can create another one as well. So my next one would be literature review. Yes.
Apologies for disturbing you. Could you kindly share your link for Jira, please?
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
I will share that. Okay, so I'm sharing this link over here, but it will just take you to the general Jira because you'd need permission to access my stuff. So yeah. If you want to view this project, I'll make it public at the end of the session so that you can just see how the Jira board looks. All right. So our first phase, our first epic is here, proposal and research design, literature review, and then I'm going to add another one over here. My next phase will be methodology and ethics clearance. And then I'll just paste over here. And then I'll add another one, data collection for my research. Then I'll add another one as well. So basically, this just allows us to structure our project in an optimized way so that there's no confusion and you know where your tasks belong. So an example I can make is with proposal and research design, I can make tasks specifically related to this epic over here. And I can do the same with these different phases over here. Okay, let me see. One more phase. So thesis writing, review, and submission. And then I'll add it over here. Right. So I've added all of my my epics over here. So then here, assignee, well, this is research, so it's obviously going to be assigned to myself, right? And then over here's the priority of each epic, right? And then the status, the current status, it's to do because it hasn't been started. Resolution unresolved, created, updated, due date. So you can add a due date if you have due dates for your tasks, right? So over here, now we're going to build milestones related to different epics, right? So a submission date becomes less intimidating when you work backwards, for example. So you'll start with a fixed milestone, then identify major outputs that must happen before it. So I'll make an example related to a task. So I'm going to just do this. So our epics are done over here. So I'll just go back to our board. So I'll create a task, right? And then here, it's important that you label it correctly, that it's a task, not a bug, because we're doing research. So for our task over here, I want to submit. Okay, so like I said, we're gonna work backwards, right, for our milestones. So a milestone that I can work backwards from is our final thesis for examination, right, the date. So I'm gonna create that task first just to plan it out. And then let's say the due date is in November. Oh, I moved the years, not months. So in November, the 30th of November, for example. And then I've just created my task, right? So this is one of my milestones. Then I'm going to create another milestone, complete supervisor review and revisions. Then this one, maybe I'll make it the 15th of November. And also, just to specify, sometimes things happen when you do research. So these dates may change, but it's a good thing to sort of estimate backwards when it comes to your research, so that you can see whether you'll be able to match the dates, or for you to be able to plan a fallback if anything should happen, right? So submit by the 30th, then by the 15th, I want to complete my supervisor review and revisions. And then my next one would be to complete my full thesis draft. And then I'll say maybe that should be due on the 30th of September. So the list is like broad with putting your milestones. So I'm going to just put this as the 30th of September. All right. So amongst these tasks over here, I can also specify and add details within the ticket. So just to reiterate, because I've been speaking about Jira in the past few sessions, these tasks over here are referred to as tickets, right? So I am able to open a ticket, and then I can change the status. I can add a description as to what I need to do with that specific ticket, any notes. Maybe, for example, I had a meeting with the supervisor and they gave me some feedback. I can paste the feedback over here so that when I attend to a specific ticket, I can address it based on the feedback that I got. And then here you can add labels. For example, okay, I have pre-made ones from a previous project. I can even have, for example, supervisor feedback. You see, it's picking up from my other um project. So just for the sake of this one, I'll put that. And then start date. If I have a targeted date that I want to start, maybe for example, I want to start this by sometime in August to do a draft. I know it's not really realistic, but just to plan out when I would like to start and when I'd like to finish, I can add a date over here. And then you can also add a priority over here. Just need to manage the fields. So when you manage the fields, you're able to add priority. Let me see over here. Okay, yes, priority over here. So I've just added priority to the description fields over here to indicate which task is highest priority, lowest, etc. So I'm going to make this a required field so that I know how to manage my different tasks on my Jira board. So let me just go back. All right. So on default, the tasks are recorded as medium priority. But then if it's something that's important, maybe I'll create a ticket over here, work on supervisor feedback, right? And then I have to label it as a task. And then I want to do this by maybe Friday. And then I'll just add it like that. Then over here, because I need to work on the feedback, I will put it as highest priority. And then inside, I'll also specify send prof an email on revisions of the proposal. All right. And then the nice part about Jira, when a task is due, it will send you an email beforehand. So I have notifications here. Like I said the last time, I've been very naughty. I haven't been doing my tasks for my research. So I've been getting some notifications every day that something is overdue or something is due today. So you can even configure your Jira to tell you that something is due in 7 days, or something of high priority needs attention, things like that. Okay, so let me just move to the next thing. All right, so I want to do a workflow for a literature review, right? So this is a task related to literature review. So I'm going to create a description. I'm going to create a ticket and a description, right? And then I'll show you how an epic works with this one specifically. So this is our milestones. Let me just specify within the tags. So I'm going to specify over here in the labels that this is a milestone, right? A milestone is what we want to achieve by a specific date. So ideally, all of these in the to-do would be labeled as milestones, right? You can add more than one tag at a time, right? So for this one, since we're winding up, I'm going to just create a ticket over here for literature review, right? So literature. Oh, the spelling just went out of my head. But let me see. Okay, copied the wrong thing. Okay, there we go. I got it back. Sorry, guys, my brain was buffering. Literature review. Nice. Then I'll label it as a task. And then I'll add a date as well, maybe by next week. And then enter. And then I'll add a priority as well. Let's put it as high. And then inside, I'm going to edit this ticket, right? So here, I'm going to add my description, right? So maybe for the literature review, I need to just put the citation, link, key argument. So these are just all the details I would need to add for this specific ticket, right? And then I can save this over here. And then over here, remember we made different epics, right? So this is where we access them. We access them under the parent. So these are different phases over here. So because this is the literature review task, I'm going to put this task under our epic over here, right? So that everything is structured in a orderly fashion, right? So can add a start date as well. I'll say maybe let's start it today. And then I can save it as is, right? And then another nice section over here, if you've invited your supervisor or if this tool is something of interest to your supervisor, you can add notes over here. You can mention them as long as they are invited to the board. So I have two accounts over here. So I can just say add, I managed to do my review, had a few issues, help, maybe, for example. And then this person will get a notification via email that they've been mentioned or something has been said inside of the specific ticket, right? So yes, basically this is what you could do to structure your tasks. You have your heading here, you have a description as to what is related to it. Then you can relate it to a parent or an epic. So this parent section is related to the epic that we created first before starting anything. And then we link it to the different epics. Then over here, just to go back to an epic, I can add another epic over here. So work on supervisor feedback. I will put it maybe over here. This is writing review. So yeah, that's basically how you can structure your research using Jira. And then when you're done or when you're in progress, for example, maybe I'm in progress with literature review, can move it to in progress. And then maybe if my supervisor feedback is done and approved. So if it's done, I move it to done, and then approved, I can move it here. So yeah, in a nutshell, this is what you can do with Jira manually without Strawberry. Yeah, I can take any questions if there are any.
Oh, so I have a question. So
Mm-hmm.
previously we were using Jira linked with Strawberry to automate which part?
Yes.
To automate which part?
Oh, sorry. So
Okay.
the the strawberry is to sort of minimize the need for me to manually type everything, to manually add everything.
Oh,
So
okay.
Strawberry would literally write all of these things, give it labels, put the due dates, put the priorities, even put descriptions for me as well.
Mm.
Yes.
And the priority, say I want to use Jira and Strawberry with or without the other. The priorities, who sets them? How are they set? How is it decided that the work on your supervisor feedback is the highest priority? How does that work? Is it the
Okay, so
system that decides
mhm.
for me, or I need to tell it?
You are the one that's supposed to set it up. So there are two ways you can go about it. If you're manually doing it, it would be based off of any feedback you got from your supervisor or your planning, right? So if you see a task needs more attention than another, you just
Mm.
label, okay, this one needs the highest attention. Then with Strawberry,
Mm.
if you received notes from your supervisor, then it will be able to discern which task that it would create needs the highest attention or has
Okay.
the biggest weight.
All right, that sounds solid. Is there anyone else who has a question for Nombali before we close? All right, it doesn't seem like there's any. Please don't forget to register on our website for upcoming events. We have an event on Friday in the Connect, the Thinking Space. We're looking forward to having you there. Please go into our website and sign up to be part of our conversation on Friday. Thank you so much, Nombadi, for an exhilarating demonstration. We're looking forward to be chatting with you again. Goodbye, everyone.